Okay, so let's get right into this. So, welcome to the Halloween live stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Halloween. And I hope you all are enjoying the Halloween vibes right now. So, I have a lot to talk about. And in this live stream, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Halloween, like more so like decoding all the rituals that go on during this time of the year. I'm going to be talking a lot about ancestry in the eighth house. Okay. So, first, I want to start off with is that we are in the time of the year where the veil is thin. Thank you for the like. Right now, I'm talking about Halloween. So, this is the time of the year where the veil is thin, and this is a time that reminds us to venerate and commune with our ancestors. Um, so, this is a very powerful time. Okay, this is a time to ask your ancestors for guidance, protection during the time of darkness and transition. Hey, Billy, welcome to the Halloween Live. How are you? So I just got started. So happy Halloween, Billy, and welcome. And if you haven't already, give this chat a like. All right. So this is a very important time to commune with the ancestors because they are very much so present during these times. Oh, you feel tired? Thank you. Yeah, it's been like a nice chill day, but I feel really energized, but that's because I had coffee. So, but thank you for coming. Um, I really like today because today the moon is actually in Pisces. So that could be why you feel tired, Billy, because Pisces energy, it does kind of lower your energy. Like it makes you more tired, like you want to sleep and go to the dream realm. So this is a perfect time to rest up too. Um, but I know some people are going to be out having Halloween festivities. So whatever it is that you do, I hope you enjoy doing it. Hi. How do you say your name? I don't even know how to say your name. But hello, welcome to the chat. So, Halloween is a very important time, and actually, things feel a little bit more intense now because Pluto is now direct in Aquarius. So, Pluto went direct in Aquarius on the 13th, and that day was very powerful for me. Like, I felt very energized, but I was also very deeply reflective as well, but not in a bad way. Like, I just felt like something activated and awakened in me that day. How do you guys feel about Pluto being direct now? Just let me know what your experience was that day. But it was a very powerful day. Like, it was like, wow. Wow. But haven't you guys noticed that the Pluto energy, it feels a lot more stronger now that we're in Scorpio season because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto as well. And not only that, Mars has been at home in Scorpio too. Really, you said what day was it? So Pluto went direct on the 13th. Yeah, Pluto went direct on the 13th. Ooh, do you guys feel like the spooky vibes? I feel like with the Aquarius and the Pisces energy, it's like Halloween, like it still kind of feels like how it's always felt, but with these energies, it's just made things like more detached. But I think if you're naturally someone who you're just very in tune, you're gonna feel it. You think hey, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, a lot of people from the past you could find are returning back into your life to test you. And if you haven't watched my video that I did a Scorpio tarot reading on Scorpio season, and I was talking about that, how people from the past are going to come back to test you, because there's a really big chapter opening up for all of us. And this is just how God does things. Like, before you level up to the next level, you get tested first to see if you're really ready, to see if you really grasp the lesson that you're in, and to make sure that you closed out any loose ends with people, situations. So you will be tested during these times. Before I get into the chat, I wanted to mention that I am having a sale on my tarot readings. It's just $20 mini 4 card tarot readings. And yeah, it ends tonight. So if you guys are interested in getting like a quick read, you could book it through my website, and then you get the reading back in the same day. So it's like a short little mini reading. So you could tap into whatever you like with this reading. It's just, I feel like it's a good time right now to really tune into the spirit realm and see what kind of guidance and information that the spirits have for us. So I would definitely recommend getting a reading. Okay. And again, it ends this evening. So if you're interested in booking a tarot reading with me, a mini tarot reading, go over to my website, cosmiccode.net, and I'll be more than happy to work with you after I get off of live. So there's that. And I also wanted to mention too that, what else did I have? Oh, of course. Yes, we're doing a live tarot reading today. So I'm taking live readings here, just 1 card readings, and you're open to send a super chat donation if you like. But to request a reading, you have to say the magic word. And the magic word is trick or treat. Okay? If you want a reading, leave trick or treat in the chat and I'll answer your question. All right. Okay. So let's get into this topic. So this live wasn't meant to be like a super structured live, but I did have something in mind that I felt was very important to talk about, and also something very much so in alignment with this spooky season. So I wanted to talk about the 8th house. So the 8th house is a house that Scorpio rules. The 8th house is the Scorpio domain. Okay. So the 8th house is deeper than a lot of people let on, especially a lot of mainstream astrologers. The 8th house is more than just biological inheritance and money. Okay. The 8th house holds deeper parts of yourself that you may not even realize. So the 8th house holds the information of the fabric of your very essence, the sacred coding of your essence. Okay. And, when I think of the 8th house and just Scorpio energy in general, I think of the DNA strand, right? Because it's connected to like your genetics and the things that you inherit biologically. But I think about it on a very deep level, where like the DNA strand, it makes me think of like, it's like a matrix coding, right? It's like your ancestral matrix coding. Okay, so all of this coding, it holds information, it holds memories. Okay, It holds ancestral knowledge, ancestral emotions, all of that. It is a system that holds information that is sacred to your bloodline. Okay. So the eighth house holds that. In the eighth house, let me see, because I wrote a whole bunch of notes here because I got a big transmission on this. So that's part of it. But so it is the house that holds the sacred codes that you share with your ancestors, okay? Because this is the house of other people's things. And it's not just material things, it's also, again, like spiritual things, psychological things, right? Eighth house holds your sacred DNA, okay? It's the house where you can inherit all types of things. You don't only just inherit material things, right? This is what a lot of mainstream astrologers miss, is that they only talk about inheritance. They talk about inheritance, but they only talk about it on the surface. So you could inherit anything, okay? You could inherit beliefs, you could inherit behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, you could inherit karma, you could inherit anything. You could inherit generational, like you could inherit curses as well. And this is also the house where you find generational curses as well. Okay. So the eighth house holds a lot. Okay. It's a really deep house. And people who have an eighth house, I like to say that they're generational curse breakers. Okay, so you guys have a big purpose. You guys have like a big purpose. You guys have a very divine mission. And part of your mission is to free your ancestors from whatever shackles or whatever bondage that they're in generationally. So when you have an eighth house, you are a generational curse breaker. And it is your responsibility in this lifetime to break the curses. Okay. Break the cycles. So it's a big job, you know. And I will say, depending on what planet is in your eighth house, that'll determine what specifically that you're breaking in your ancestral line. And I will go through the planets through the eighth house in just a second. What I will say is that when you look at your eighth house in astrology, it shows where either your predecessors left off or what they failed to do. So when you have an eighth house, whatever was left off from your predecessors, now it is your responsibility in this lifetime. Or if you fail to live out the mission, or whatever you leave off on, the generation after you continues the work that you were doing. Okay. But I feel like most importantly, it's important to really break through a lot of the generational cycles and curses, because the thing is, if you don't break it in this lifetime, and say like a couple people in your generations after, hi Kyra, welcome to the chat, say a couple people in generations after you, if they don't break that cycle, the curse just keeps continuing. You know what I'm saying? It gets passed down to the next person that's more equipped to break through the cycle. Okay. Your eighth house is in Scorpio. Ooh, okay. I'll be getting into that in just a minute, Billy. Do you have planets in the eighth house? Or your eighth house is just Scorpio? Let me know in the chat because I'm curious. But so yes, the eighth house, it holds a lot, you guys. It holds a lot. And you know, the eighth house is also a house where, you know, you just take on so much of your ancestors, you know, everything about them. And, you know, this is why, like, even to this day, you can, to this day, like, you can still feel the emotions of your ancestors, you know, feel their happiness, feel their sadness, you know. The the eighth house is like a super intelligence house. A lot of people wouldn't associate the eighth house with that, but I do. It's like a super intelligence house, but for your sacred bloodline, though. So it's like a whole system, you know, in the eighth house. And it makes sense because Uranus is exalted in Scorpio, and you know, Uranus is like a very technological, um, it, you know, like a technological kind of planet. You know, it has to do with like coding and systems and programming. So it makes sense that I feel like the eighth house is like a super, you know, a super system, but for your ancestors. So it's really important to tap into your eighth house, especially if you're an eighth house person. Okay. So do you guys have any questions so far about what I'm talking about? Welcome to the second person in the chat. Say hi in the chat. I'm talking about the eighth house in astrology. And I'm actually going to get into all the planets through the eighth house. Okay. If you guys have any questions, leave it in the chat, and I'll answer them in a little bit. But let me see what my notes say. Okay. Just keep in mind, you guys, like, you don't think you have any planets in your eighth house, really? That's okay. I do feel like you could also pay attention to the rulership as well. I would say pay attention to the rulership. So the rulership for your eighth house, Vili, would be Pluto and Mars. Okay, so you could definitely still resonate with the planetary breakdown through the eighth house. So let me get into that. And I'm going to be very brief too, because it's like all the houses or all the planets. Hold on, I have to switch. Okay. So let's get into it. Okay. So let's get into the all sign breakdown. So, Sun in the eighth house, it's a very, very prominent placement. So, when we're speaking to the sun in the eighth house, we're talking about identity. We're talking about self expression. So, you mostly came from a bloodline where, you know, there was confusion around their identity and also a suppression of self expression. So, there was like a fear of being seen in your lineage. So, you know, this resulted in low confidence or kind of just being in the shadows and feeling shame and expressing who you are, right? You know, it was actually forbidden to be very showy and expressive in your lineage. So, with Sun in the eighth house, how you break the curse is you just have to express, right? Show up, show out, be loud, be proud, you know, and really explore your identity more, really solidify your identity, and, just embracing being out in the spotlight and being seen more, you know. Your ancestors will greatly appreciate you for that. So I feel like a good way to channel this is like through an art form, like dance, singing, whatever the case may be, or just in your everyday life, just practice showing up as your authentic self, And I feel like the more and more you do that, the more you release those sacred codes within you and your ancestry that have been in bondage or just felt like they weren't able to have a safe space to do that. Okay. Now, with the moon in the eighth house. So, this is deep, and I've actually met quite a few people with this. So the moon in the eighth house is speaking to femininity and emotions. So there was a lot of shame around emotions, femininity. Most likely the women in your lineage, they were suppressed, they were silenced, they weren't encouraged to express themselves emotionally. And I feel like overall you weren't encouraged to express emotions at all. You couldn't open up or be vulnerable. Crying wasn't a thing. But this resulted in pent up emotions, to where you, being the descendant of your ancestors, you went through a lot of challenges when it came to opening up and expressing yourself. There was a lot of shame around that, but that is part of breaking the generational curse of emotions. Okay. Another thing with moon in the eighth house too, I noticed that they have a lot of psychic abilities, and that was also shamed as well. That wasn't celebrated at all, like your spiritual gifts. And I feel like anyone with moon in the eighth house, you have inherited a lot of spiritual gifts from your ancestors. So to honor them is to utilize them, is to practice with your spiritual gifts. But also, most importantly, to honor your ancestors is to express yourself emotionally, because when you do that, not only is it that you heal, you're also healing your bloodline through your emotional expression. So that is moon in the eighth house. Okay. What's the next one? Mercury in the eighth house. So you came from a lineage of people who were very intellectual. Okay. So the mind was a focal point in your lineage. Okay. Communication was also another focal point in your lineage as well. And you could find with the Mercury in the eighth house that your lineage was suppressed when it came to their communication. So they were silenced, okay? And this resulted around generations down the line where they had throat chakra issues, right? Either it's like throat it's either throat chakra issues in the sense of like you're talking too much or you're not talking enough, okay? But 9 times out of 10 with the eighth house, it's like you're not talking enough, okay, with Mercury in the eighth house. So there was a suppression around the voice to where you could find that there was a lot of shame when it came to speaking up, speaking the truth, telling the truth, speaking about deep personal things, hidden things. You know, there was often a lot of, we're not going to talk about this because I'm trying to protect the image of the family. So there are certain things that are going on that nobody's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like this is oddly collective too, especially when it comes to the Black community, where there are a lot of things that go on and nobody talks about it. You know what I'm saying? So with Mercury in the 8th house, really, you could relate to Mercury in the 8th house. Yeah, it's a very, very powerful placement when it's channeled well and it's finally healed. This makes you somebody that has a very powerful voice. Your voice has impact. And breaking the generational curse of silence in your lineage, it involves you having to just speak the truth. You know what I'm saying? Even if you get demonized for it. And oftentimes, a person with Mercury in the 8th house, they will find that they're often shamed into silence, right? Because speaking the truth, it opens up that Pandora's box and it activates change. That I found with Mercury in the 8th house, a lot of people in their lineage, they struggle with change, you know, and it's an act of being aware, having the knowledge, because when you have knowledge, you start unlocking things, right? And that's why it's important for the 8th house. That's why it's important for somebody with Mercury in the 8th house to study their lineage, you know, study their ancestry, study their family tree, so they understand the the inner workings of your lineage. You understand the sacred coding of your lineage, because once you have the knowledge and you decode it, that is when you can make the breakthrough. Okay? And that is when things start unlocking and activating in your DNA. So that is Mercury in the 8th house. Um, what else? Let me see. Yeah, that's Mercury in the 8th house. Does anybody have any questions so far? Let me know in the chat if you have any questions so far. Oh, you have your lunar node in the 8th house. Okay, is it your north node that you have in the 8th house or your south node? I will say with the nodes, when you have the nodes in your 8th house, working with your ancestral line and healing your ancestral line is a very integral part of your life path, especially if it's your north node. But let me know in the chat, Billy, which side of the spectrum do you have? Do you have your south node? It says it's descending. So you have your south node in the 8th house. So it could be that with your south node in the 8th house, there's some like unfinished business there. So I feel like there could have been something that wasn't completed and that is cycling back around in this lifetime that has to be dealt with in order to open up to more of your new path in this lifetime. Okay. So I feel like there are a lot of things happening in your 8th house, whether you have planets there or not, but just the nodes alone, it's speaking a lot about the past. So there are things from the past that you have to close out in order to fully evolve into your north node, which is in your 2nd house. And it could be related to money things or like wealth, things of that nature. Security, stability. I said stability. Stability. Oh my goodness. Stability. Okay. But I feel like the nodes in the 8th house, that's speaking to like, that is like an integral part of your evolution. Like, that is a must that you have to break whatever curses, heal whatever part of the bloodline that needs you. That's an integral part of your life path. Okay. So Venus in the eighth house. So Venus in the eighth house, this speaks to Billy said sigh. Let me get to this work. Yes. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And just keep in mind, like, have grace with yourself. Give yourself grace because not only is the human experience a whole lot to deal with, but also, it's a whole lot, because this is like generations. You know what I'm saying? Like your ancestral line goes back like generations, so it's a whole lot of work. Some people, they'll be able to clear all their karmic ancestral things in this lifetime, and some people will only be able to do some of it. You know what I'm saying? And it's okay because there's always going to be someone in the next generation after that will be equipped to do this work. So do what you can, but actually do the work. Make it your duty to do the work. I love that movie too. That was a really good movie. Encanto, yes. And I like Coco too. I feel like it's talking about that too, a little bit. Yeah. Now, for Venus in the eighth house, Venus is the planet of relationships, money, beauty, feminine energy. So, when your Venus is in your eighth house, you come from a lineage where it was very hard for you guys to connect. You know what I'm saying? Every connection was very transactional and it was based off of control, especially when it came to what you have. You know what I'm saying? To be in a relationship, it was under the guise of some sort of like transactional agreement, And there could be an issue with codependency in in your lineage. So another thing with Venus in the eighth house, you could find that you struggle with feminine energy, embracing your sensuality. I do feel like this is another one where a lot of the women in the lineage, they were demonized from expressing their sensuality and embracing it, so you were very cut off from that, like the Venusian things. So to break that curse is to become more independent, okay? And also to create a space for relationships to be about more so about true connection than it being transactional only. It's important that, yes, that you have relationships in your life that benefit you on a practical level, but it's also important to have true connection as well. And I do feel like Venus in the eighth house people, they could struggle with that. Hi, Sai. Welcome to the chat. I'm talking about the eighth house in astrology. So if you have an eighth house, this live stream is for you. And I'm talking about Venus in the eighth house right now. So yeah, Venus in the eighth house also can find you're Indian. Hello. Welcome are you from India or you're just like your family is from India? Like, are you currently living in India, is what I mean? Or like, were you born here in the States to a family that's from India? Let me know in the chat. And if you have any questions, side, just leave it in the chat. Um, and also, I'm also doing live tarot readings as well. So if you have a question, put in the chat trick or treat, and then I'll pull a card for you. Okay, so That's Venus in the 8th house. Yeah, Venus in the 8th house, they need to embrace their divine feminine energy. Both the women and the men, but definitely the women need to step into the women need to step into their divine power with Venus in the 8th house. Okay? They need to embrace their sensuality. Okay. So the next one is Mars in the 8th house. So if you have Mars in the 8th house, this speaks to your drive. This speaks to also your identity too. Kind of similar to Sun in the 8th house. But with Mars in the 8th house, it's more so speaking to your vitality and your relationship to action, risk. You know what I'm saying? Leadership, those themes. Welcome to the 3 people in the chat. Okay, say hi in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if you have any questions. With Mars in the 8th house, you came from a lineage where there was fear around taking risk and, doing things outside of your comfort zone because there was like a fear of like, there was like this perspective of like risk had to do with like danger. So they could have held themselves back from taking certain actions that could have that could have like either expanded them in some sort of way that could have just really opened up a lot of new territory for them. And I feel like too with Mars in the 8th house, somewhere in your lineage there could have been a fear of like leadership and just overall, just I would say it's just more so just doing something that has never been done before because they wanted to play it safe. You know what I'm saying? Asserting yourself in any kind of way with Mars in the 8th house was shamed. So it's like with Mars in the 8th house, they could have found like people in their lineage could have just, played it safe and just done what is like the norm to do or what was going to keep the others safe. With Mars in the 8th house, to break the curse, it has to do with stepping into a leadership position, um, doing things that your ancestors didn't have the opportunity to do. Maybe they didn't have the knowledge, the tools, or even, like I said, with Mars in the 8th house, there's a fear around asserting yourself when it comes to your desires, um, being very independent and acting on your own desires was forbidden, especially in the times of our ancestors. A lot of us were living in community. So it's like you always had to consider the community. But in this day and age, we have strayed away from the idea of community and we're more individualized. So you having Mars in the 8th house, you hold space for your ancestors and let them know that it is okay to go after your desires. You know what I'm saying? So by you going after your desires, you're making your ancestors happy because it's like you're doing things that they didn't get to do or they felt like they couldn't do. Okay? So that's Mars in the 8th house. And then we have Saturn in the 8th. So what I noticed with the outer planets is that when they're in the 8th house, they could go one of two ways, right? So with Saturn in the 8th house, you could find that either you came from a lineage where they struggled with stability and structure and responsibility, especially when it came to monetary things, or they had too much structure to where there was a lot of control and limitation, to where any type of any type of flow or creativity that was forbidden. So it really just depends on what side of the spectrum you're on with the Saturn in the eighth house. But 9 times out of 10, with Saturn in the eighth house, it leans more towards there was this over there's this over prioritization of control. Okay, there is an issue with control. Um, your lineage most likely struggled with a lot of fears as well, because Saturn has to do with like fears. And this is someone where they have heavy karmic debt with their lineage. And it kind of makes sense of why your lineage they're they're like this, because it's like there's a lot of heaviness in the bloodline. So with Saturn in the eighth house is really about releasing this need for control, kind of letting loose a little bit, allowing more flow into your life, and releasing fear. And I feel like the more you do that, the less heavy you'll feel. And this will take time because, Saturn is the planet of time. So this is like over time. The more you break out of those limitations of your lineage, the more easy it is to progress forward and the more karmic debt you clear. Because with Saturn in the eighth house, I do feel like this person has a lot of heavy karmic debt to pay off in this lifetime. Jupiter in the eighth house is an interesting one, and it's another one where it could go one of two ways. So with Jupiter in the eighth house, your ancestral curse has to do with belief systems and spirituality, to where either you come from a lineage where they have extreme fanaticism with a certain religion or a belief or a tradition, or they could lean into more so extreme cynicism where it's like they struggle to believe in anything spiritual. They're very spiritually disconnected in that way. So it really just depends on what side of the spectrum that you fall in with Jupiter in the eighth house. But I will say, whatever this belief system is, and it's going to look different for everybody, especially depending on the sign that your Jupiter is in, it could show that this very belief system is causing a blockage and an inability for your ancestral line to expand. Okay. And it's also causing a blockage when it comes to your ancestral line being free as well. So it's been keeping your ancestral line in bondage. Okay. So to break that curse is to and another thing too, with Jupiter in the eighth house, there's also an issue with idealism as well in your lineage. Okay. So you guys struggle with groundedness. Okay. Or it could be the opposite end where you struggle with being too grounded. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of like, there's a lack of vision, there's a lack of inspiration. That wasn't something that was openly celebrated. Okay. So somebody with Jupiter in the eighth house, they could tap into more of an expansive mindset, but as long as they ground it down, so where there's like a balance, and also exploring, different spiritual paths outside of what you grew up with and what was generationally passed down. you know. Because you'll find exploring a new spiritual path, it could be the answers that you need to break the cycle of your ancestral line, right? So that's the eighth house. That's Jupiter in the eighth house. So the next one is Uranus in the eighth house. So Uranus in the eighth house. So this is actually an interesting one because Uranus in the eighth house, it speaks to you came from a lineage of rebels, um, just warriors, and you came from a lineage of like social warriors in some way. Like there was like a chaos warrior spirit in your lineage, which is an amazing thing. But I will say on the dark side, it caused a lot of upheaval and instability in your lineage. And it also caused a lot of detachment as well. So you could find that people in your bloodline, people in your family line, they're very detached and they could be very chaotic. But that's why you, with the eighth house, it is your job to break that cycle of generational chaos, right? So that would look like, embracing the rebellious spirit, but in a more grounded way. And also, too, embracing your individualism as well and embracing your uniqueness, because I feel like that's another thing that has plagued your lineage as well. They came up in times where they were forced to conform. Okay, so individuality was not celebrated in your lineage. And even you could find when you have tried to be individualized, it just created a lot of upheaval. Okay, so, and that's always an indicator that you're always doing the right thing. Like with an eighth house, whenever there's chaos and it feels hard and it feels like you're being tested and it feels heavy, that means you're doing the right thing, because it's not easy to break generational curses. It's not easy to break karmic generational cycles. Okay. So there's that. And Neptune in the eighth house. Neptune in the eighth house is interesting because this is another one where your lineage, you come from a lineage of psychics, visionaries, people who are very spiritually gifted, but that wasn't often encouraged, So a lot of your spiritual gifts were suppressed in your lineage. And also, there could be struggles with addiction, um, and just overall just elusiveness in your family lineage. Okay, so there is a lack of um, a grasp of reality with this. Okay, so you may have found that people in your family line, they're not very grounded people. You know what I'm saying? Like they're very much so detached themselves, but in a more elusive kind of way. So with you having Neptune in the eighth house, breaking that generational cycle will look like grounding down in your spirituality, utilizing your spiritual gifts in a way where it has purpose, where it's healing for others, use your gift for a purpose, and to balance out your visions with your reality, having a nice balance between being a visionary, being a dreamer, but also being realistic too. So it's like you're actually manifesting a lot of big dreams that your lineage had, but again, maybe they didn't have the knowledge, the tools, the resources to manifest these things. So you would be blessed for this because there are a lot of visions that your ancestors had that they were unable to live out in their lifetime. So you live in a lifetime where anything is possible, right? So that is Neptune in the eighth house. And lastly, Pluto in the eighth house. Pluto in the eighth house, you came from a long, powerful line of people, okay? Your lineage is a very powerful lineage. And with Pluto in the eighth house, power and control was a big issue because it was used in the wrong ways. You know, there was a misuse of power. Power was used for destruction instead of transformation, healing, you know, and actually like breaking whatever cycles, you know what I'm saying, traumatic cycles. You know, power was used to inflict more damage, more trauma, okay? So you could have seen a lot of that in your family line where there was always power struggles, there was always battles, conflict, trauma. So with Pluto in the eighth house, people, your job here as a generational curse breaker with Pluto in the eighth house is to use your power to heal your bloodline, free your bloodline, break traumatic cycles, and to uplift your bloodline. Okay? That is Pluto in the eighth house. All the planets through the eighth house. Does anybody have any questions? Hi, Sayan. Welcome to the live chat. I just finished talking about the eighth house in astrology. How are you today? Happy Halloween. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat and I'll be able to answer those. Nice. Is this your first time on my channel? I haven't seen you before. Yeah, I have not seen you before. Hi, Billy. So, Billy, you said, I think my Chiron revealed I was connected to powerful people in a past life, so I kind of relate to the Pluto in the eighth house. Sayan, you said personal tarot questions are related to what you said previously. Either or. If you're going to ask for a tarot question, you have to say trick or treat. That's the magic word. But you can ask questions about anything that you like. Eighth house, you know, my whole breakdown on the eighth house. Okay, so you want a tarot question. And to answer what you said, Billy, most likely you were, you know, Chiron in the eighth house, you came from a lineage of healers, actually, very intelligent healers. So you could find that has translated in your family line where it's like you find a lot of nurses, doctors in your family, people who like to help and heal and serve. Okay. I'm going to get my tarot cards. Hold on. I have crystals on top. Okay. Do you have an eighth house, Sayan? Are you an eighth house person? Are you a Plutonian? Do you have Scorpio energy? So you want to know what's next for you professionally? Okay. Sorry, I didn't channel in earlier. You got the Seven of Wands, and I'm using the Native Spirit Tarot, by the way. Thank you for the like. So you got the Seven of Wands. So I do feel for you, Sayan, I do feel like you're coming up on a promotion, actually, because the Seven of Wands speaks to like when you're leveling up or you're in a space where a lot is going well for you, and you could find that a lot of people are attacking you. You know, it could be out of jealousy, it could be that people are trying to take you down. This is a card of where you're dealing with haters because you have ascended to a position that a lot of people want. So I do see like a promotion is happening for you. And I feel like whatever this promotion is, I do feel like it's something that was very difficult to get in your company. Okay. I'm not too sure if you're in corporate America or you have your own business, but I will say just be mindful of who's around. Okay? Because there are some people that are going to try to knock you off of your position. But I will say with this big promotion though, this brings more responsibility. So you could also find that a lot of people are requesting your energy. So it's important to put proper boundaries and to know your limits of how much you can give. But I will say this is very positive overall. You're an entrepreneur. Okay. So that means I feel like you're going to be opening up to more responsibilities in your business. So your business is going to be going to the next level. Okay, so that's going to bring a lot more responsibilities. A lot more people are going to be requesting your time. So it's important to manage your time, manage your energy so you're not getting burnt out. And so your peace isn't being disrupted. Okay. But definitely be mindful of the haters. Okay. Definitely be mindful because they're watching. Um, and I will say, because we are in Scorpio season, if you guys haven't seen my Instagram post, go follow me on Instagram. It's Cosmic Code. I was talking about that. I was talking about how there are some snakes in the grass. And I also mentioned this in my Scorpio reading too that I did on here. There's some snakes in the grass, and that you need to watch people because a lot of people are going to be coming to you in disguise. Okay? So it's important to be sharp right now. You said it's an accurate reading. Thank you. Thank you so much. So how did you find my channel, Sayan? I have never seen you before, but it's nice to meet you though. Um, so I went through the whole eighth house. So again, do you guys have any questions about any of the eighth house planets before I move forward? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You don't have any questions, Billy? Okay. So we can move forward. Um, so I did want to do that breakdown because I felt like it's important to know, especially for those of you who have an eighth house. So whoever watches this back, you know, they'll have like a mini breakdown on the eighth house. So what I did want to mention, and you know, I was debating whether or not I wanted to talk about this because it's a little controversial. So I'm a little nervous to talk about it, but I wanted to give my deeper insights on the eighth house. So when I was channeling through the essence of the eighth house, this is what I came to. And I want to put out a very clear disclaimer. I don't have an issue with any race, and I'm not promoting segregation. Okay. I just want to make that clear. Okay. And I'm coming from a spiritual, ancestral perspective when I say this. When I say this, this is purely ancestral and spiritual, and also tying it in with history too. So, my thoughts on the eighth house and how this relates to us collectively, and what I've been observing is that understanding that the eighth house is where you find your ancestral lineage coding. When it comes to the idea of procreation, I do feel like there are certain ancestral lines that shouldn't be mixing together. Okay. And I say this because I feel like every lineage has their own unique coding, their own sacred energy. And I just feel like the more you mix, the more far away you are from your lineage, the more it kind of muddles the energy there. And I say this because I noticed like how I just noticed like just how we've came to be as a collective. It's really because we're disconnected from our ancestors. I feel like a lot of ancestral lines have been weakened. You know what I'm saying? Because we haven't been pouring into our communities and honoring our ancestral lines. We've been straying away. We've strayed away from it. Billy, you agree? Because I was a little nervous because I'm like, I don't want people to think the wrong thing. But ultimately, people are going to think what they want. Okay. And I'm going to take it a step further when I say this. And it really goes back to colonialism and how colonialism has done a psychological, just crazy work on a lot of us and our ancestors. And it doesn't matter what group you're from. You could be Black, you could be Hispanic, you could be Asian. Hi. Hi, Yushra. Welcome to the chat. It doesn't matter what your race is. I do feel like we've all of our ancestors suffered from colonialism because it was forced on them. You know, a lot of our ancestors were raped for, to mix with white people. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like over time that has weakened the ancestral lines because when it comes to like DNA and all of, I do feel like it's our duty to heal and restore our sacred DNA. And I feel like we failed to do that because we've been too busy outside ourselves. And that's why I noticed that there's a lot of all white communities, all Black communities, all whatever race communities popping up on the scene now because I think people are realizing without actually realizing this is happening that a lot of people are wanting to focus more so on their communities and pouring back into it, healing it, restoring it, regenerating it, strengthening it. Because I feel like over time we have lost our ancestral connection is what I'm feeling. And I do feel like it's due to the procreation and how since colonialism, the idea of like if you mix with white people, then you're improving your race or you're improving your bloodline when I actually think it's the opposite. I feel like melanated people were very diverse people. You said yes, it still impacts us to to this day. Yeah, it does. I have an issue with colonialism and the damage that it's caused. And I'm just calling it for what it is. And I feel like it's done the opposite of what they ideally thought it would do. Because when it comes to melanated people, we have a diaspora. We have a large diaspora of melanated people. And melanated people, we're very powerful spiritually. This is why we've been exploited for everything, including our spiritual power. And this is also part of why our lineages have weakened. Okay. And I just feel like as we go through this age of Aquarius, especially with the North Node, it's going to be in Aquarius next year. I do feel like there's going to be a focus on really connecting with your soul tribe, ancestral remembrance, and really just pouring into your own communities. I'm not saying like we can't be friends with other communities. I'm not saying like, there doesn't have to be no issue. We could live on this earth amongst each other respectfully. Okay. But I do feel, in terms of procreation, I feel like this is where we need to be more discerning. Okay. This is where we need to be a little bit more discerning. Yes. If you have a tarot question, put trick or treat in the chat because it's Halloween and I'll pull one card for you. Yes. For those of you coming in the chat, just know I'm doing live readings. If you want a live question answered, just put trick or treat in the chat and I'll answer your question. And also, for those of you who are also entering, I am having a tarot sale. It's ending tonight. It's a little 4-card mini tarot. So if you want to dive deeper into a question that you have, book through my website, cosmiccode.net. The sale ends tonight. So just so you know. Okay. What is your question? Yushra. Thank you for your question. Billy, you said, I don't know how to spell it, but there is a term in the Latin community that has a name for having mixed children or to better. Oh, mejora la raza. Mejora la raza. That's what they call it, Billy. And it's like it's a phrase that they use to improve. They're saying like to improve the race. And I feel like it's done the opposite. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like it's done more damage than good. And I'm actually going to do a full dedicated video for this, so my community hears it first. And you know what made me really bring this theory home was biracial people. What I noticed, and this is something that I researched, I actually was watching a podcast about a biracial person. She was talking about her experience with having a white mom. And long story short, she was basically saying how she experienced a lot of trauma and how being biracial is very hard because it's very spiritually traumatizing. It's very psychological trauma. It's a lot of psychological trauma. And that makes sense, especially with the history of colonialism and how melanated people and white people, they're not on good terms. That makes sense. So I could understand why she says that as a biracial person, because I could only imagine how spiritually conflicted a biracial person feels because of just the history of both ancestral lines. So imagine the psychological warfare that a biracial person is under. So this is why I said, I just feel like we need to go back to where we are mixing amongst our shared ancestral lines. Because I feel like there are certain ancestors that don't mix well. It's no different than like, how you work with certain orishas and things. certain orishas, they do not get along. Certain spirits, they do not get along. So people who practice like chaos magic and they work with all these different deities from different cultures, they may not get along. And that even comes down to us as well. You know, certain ancestors, they don't get along. But definitely when it comes to the white and black community, I could see how that could be an issue. And it's goes directly back to history. Sorry, Yushra. Okay. Does my friend Adam have feelings for me? Okay. Yushra, if you're in the chat still, I'll answer your question. Okay. Sorry it took so long. I was channeling. But let me answer your question. Oh, so we got a little love question. Let's see. So you got the Five of Wands for your question. So it seems like your friend Adam is a little conflicted. Okay. So I would say that they do have feelings. They just feel a little conflicted. And it could be that they love being your friend. And, you know, being in a serious relationship, sometimes it could make or break a relationship. And it seems like this person values your friendship. So they're kind of conflicted like, should I say anything? And if I say anything, how will they feel? What will they think? So it's nothing bad. It's just kind of one of those moments where it's like, oh, I like the person, but it's like I'm afraid to tell them. And it's like I'm afraid to like ruin our friendship kind of thing. So there's that. But they do have feelings. It's just conflicted. So I would say like, you know, allow them on their time to tell you. So if you kind of been like trying to figure out, like trying to push them, I would just say let them come to you on their time. Let it flow naturally. Because I feel like when you push, you're going to make more conflict kind of thing. But there's a potential relationship that could open up. I would just say, just kind of let him, you know, open up to you. You said sometimes you're serious, so maybe he doesn't know how. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Maybe he thinks like you don't feel the same about him, probably. So you haven't spoken to him about it? No, you're good. I'm here to answer questions, tarot questions, questions about my channel. Like I'm here to talk. So you're good. Okay. So that's how I feel about things lately. Especially I noticed too, like the birth rate is declining. And I do feel like there's a deeper spiritual reason for that. And I feel like I tapped into something that could potentially be a conversation later on down the line. But I do feel like the fact that we have mixed a little bit too much, this has taken us away from our ancestral power, which is why we're in a time now where our ancestors are helping us rise up and remember. So, Scorpio season is a very powerful time right now to honor your ancestors, to talk to them, to reconnect with them, you know? Yushra, you said because I act too independent and I am not really vulnerable. Well, maybe you should try opening up, you know? I would say maybe you should try to have like a sit down conversation so he knows at least it's a safe space, you know? You said English is not your first language. That is okay. I think you're doing great. I think you're doing great. Okay, let me go back to Billy. Billy, you said, and mixed kids specifically are upheld in the Black community. Sadly, like the way dark skinned children are treated goes back to the whole which doll is the ugly one. What? And it's not to demonize mixed kids, it's not their fault, but it's to understand like not only are like fully Black people, you know, they have their trauma and, you know, their psychological things, so do mixed kids. And I brought them up to make the point of why I feel like when it comes to terms when it comes to the idea of procreation, it's causing a lot of problems. I know a lot of people may not like that I'm saying this, but this is just what I think. Yeah, I removed them, Billy. I removed them. You clocked that too. I'm like, what is going on? No, I removed them. Do not bring that in my chat, okay? So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, trick or treat. Okay, listen. I love these trick or treats. What's your question, Billy? Oh no. Oh no, oh no. What is going on? Give me just a second because this is crazy. Mm-mm. Give me just a second, Billy. I'm trying to get this out of here. Yes. Oh my gosh. So I hope that did it. I hope I got them cuz oh my goodness. Okay, go ahead, Billy. What's your question? How will the rest of your 2025 go? Let's see what the cards say. Okay. So I accidentally got two cards, but I'm getting a couple messages. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to do. Okay. I don't know why they keep coming back. Okay. I don't know cuz let me see. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hopefully they don't put anything else. Okay, so you got two cards, Billy. So today's your lucky day. So you got the moon card. So I do feel there is a significant chapter opening up for you, and it's having you step into a very unknown territory that you're not used to. So, towards the end of the year, things could feel very uncertain, but still you feel your intuition is pulling you in a certain direction. Um, I will say at the end of the year, or even November rather, we're having a Mercury retrograde, so keep that in mind. So if you're feeling a little confusion right now, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, Billy, but I don't really know. You did? Thank you so much, because I don't know, it's not letting me block the person. I thought there was a block button on here to where they could stop um posting. Okay? Like where it says go to channel, because I don't know if I go to their channel, will it exit the live stream? I don't know. Well, I'm on my laptop, so I don't know if it's different on the laptop, but I hope because I was reporting it because this is just out of control. Um, so the Mercury, I'm sorry, Billy, they're disrupting your whole reading because it's just like, oh my gosh. Um, um, okay, so Billy, so towards the end of the year, things could feel a little uncertain, but Spirit is saying to follow your intuition. There's definitely a divine purpose opening up for you. And I will say with what is it? The two of coins, towards the end of the year, you're going to be more busy. This is a card where you just got a lot going on. You're juggling a lot. So this could be a very busy time for you. That's how your 2025, the rest of your 2025 is going to be. Okay. Yes. So let's move on to the next part of this live stream. So I had a lot to say about that. So does anybody have any questions? Anything to add when it comes to colonialism, ancestral lines, anything that I spoke about so far before I transition into the next part? None for you? Okay. So I wanted to talk more about ancestral veneration because, like I've been saying since the beginning of this live, that this is a time to venerate your ancestors. Okay, so build an altar for them, give them offerings, light candles. Okay, this is a time to work with a lot of different deities, especially like the underworld deities. Okay, and it's interesting because Halloween is a tradition that Halloween is something that has got its popularity from like ancient traditions, just that go generations back. Um I know Halloween is originally from the Celts, but I will say Halloween does take things from Africa, African traditions as well. Like as far as like the party scene of Halloween, music and dance is very spiritual, okay? Dressing up, the costumes, all very spiritual. I was learning about it's called the Dogon tribe, and they were talking about the symbolism of their mask and just overall what mass symbolized to them. And it's like a way to channel the ancestor spirits, okay? And it's also a way to blend in with the spirits in order to guide them into the afterlife, because you have to think, especially around this time, a lot of spirits come out because they need help. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of spirits where, they're lost or they haven't transitioned, so they need assistance. So really, I would say dressing up in accordance to your ancestral line will definitely be a good thing when it comes to assisting like your ancestors with certain things. So the mask is a very important symbol when it comes to rituals and ancestral veneration. And masks, they symbolize transformation. And I do feel like the combination of mass, dance, I do feel like that's a form of possession. Okay. It's a form of channeling. Music is very spiritual. Um, it's very powerful. It's a powerful way to channel in the ancestors and just spirits in general. When you start dancing, it's like you caught the spirit. And it's like music, it summons spirits. Okay. So during this time, it'll be awesome for you to listen to music, dance, dress up. It's all very ancient. Yes, the Holy Ghost Spirit. Yes. That's exactly what it is, Billy. It's like when they say in church, when they caught the Holy Ghost and they're dancing, it's an act of possession. See, that's the thing. A lot of these churches are doing rituals and witchcraft too. You know what I'm saying? So, but the mask is also a form of protection too. In Celtic religion, especially on Hallows Eve, because that's what it was called initially, they would wear costumes and dress up to protect themselves from the spirits because there would be like an abundance of spirits coming in during these times. So, as a form of protection, they would wear masks and, costume. to keep the spirits at bay, but also they would also give them offerings as well to keep them at bay, so the spirits weren't trying to harass them or come into their house. That is where we get the idea of giving offerings, or even specifically with Halloween, this is where we get the idea of like, giving out candy and things of that nature. So it's all very ancient. Yes, wear your mask, protect yourself. Definitely during these times, you need a lot of spiritual protection. So work with your black crystals, your black candles, all of it. Yes, definitely. Different cultures use masks for different things, but a lot of a lot of it is for protection mainly. Because even in the Japanese culture, I was also learning too, like the oni mask, like the demon looking mask. It was a mask that was used for samurais to protect themselves, not only like physically, but also like spiritually. So it was like a intimidation tactic, to like throw your enemies off kind of thing. So, but also in the Japanese culture, they use the oni mask outside of their houses to ward away evil, repels all kind of negativity like bad luck, all of that. Yeah, so wear your mask, okay? Because the spirits are out. They're roaming around, okay? And I would say be careful drinking as well. For those of you who are going out, just be mindful of that, because alcohol is spirits too. Alcohol is spirits too. So when you're opening yourself up and you're going into those environment where it has music and alcohol, just make sure you have something protective on you, because you don't want to catch a spirit that you don't want on you. Okay? Does anybody have questions so far on that? You guys have any questions on that? What are your thoughts? Yeah, so get your rituals going. This is the perfect time. Like from October 30th to like the beginning of November is a very spiritual time. And it's a time to celebrate, to feast, to honor your spiritual deities. One of the spiritual deities that I wanted to talk about is from the Taino culture. And I wanted to talk about her because she was on my mind. And mind you, I seen something about this a while ago on Instagram, how apparently there is a statue of a very well-known Taino goddess. Her name is Atabey, and she's one of the well-known Zemi out of the Zemi family in the Taino religion. Um, and apparently, in the Dominican Republic, there is a big statue of her underwater, and the city council wants to remove it. And I'm like, why would you remove it? How I see it, it's like an altar. Atabey, she is very important because she is like mother goddess, okay? She is a Zemi. A Zemi in Taino religion is another way of saying like a ancestral spirit, like a god or a goddess, like a deity. So you know, she is the protector of the waters. She rules over the waters. She's connected to fertility. She's a moon goddess, okay? And not only that, that statue is a coral reef habitat too. So not only is it helping the environment, but it's also protecting the land, and it's very sacred to the land. And they want to remove it because this was like a proposal made from the religious local community in the Dominican Republic, because their issue is like it's like they're idolizing a statue, that's not in alignment with the religious values of, the Dominican Republic. And little do they know, like, Taino Indians were in the Caribbean well before colonialism brought Catholicism. You know what I'm saying? These ancestral practices have been going on for many generations. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like to remove it, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea because I feel like if they remove it, then it's going to wreak havoc on the land. So whoever lives in the DR, or they know somebody from the DR, or they travel there often, I would definitely protest against that if I were you, because I feel like if they remove this statue, it could bring like a really bad hurricane. And I know like there's a hurricane going on in the Caribbean with Jamaica right now. So, yeah. But when I seen that reel on Instagram, I was so sad because I'm like, why would you remove like a beautiful work of art? That's first and foremost. And two, I don't think that's smart for them to do that. And not only that, Haiti is next door. So if something happens in the DR, then something's going to happen in Haiti. And it's like Haiti already has enough issues. So I say leave the statue alone. And then it's underwater. So it's like, I don't really get why they're making a big deal about it. You know what I'm saying? Deities don't like it when you mess with their altar. That's like an altar. You don't do that. Did you guys hear about that on Instagram? Did you guys see that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying, Billy? Like, I hope they don't because I feel like she's going to be pissed. She's going to be pissed. And since she rules the waters, like, she could make a hurricane, like, she could make mass destruction happen. Like, she's going to be pissed, honestly. Hi, Ethan. We're talking about the Taino religion, the Taino goddess Atabey, and how apparently the city council in Dominican Republic, they want to remove her. But we talked about a whole bunch of stuff like the eighth house in astrology. We talked about generational curses, ancestry. We talked about a whole bunch. And I'm doing live tarot reading. So if you want a card pull, you say trick or treat in the chat. I know. That's why I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like, what is going on? Right, Billy? Like, you're the only one I feel safe with right now. Like, for real. Whoever's like a troll, they just need to stay out of this live. For real. Only my community only. That is what I'm putting out to the universe right now. Because I don't know if they're bots. I don't know if they're like real life trolls, but it's just like, go away. What you mean, Belly? There are guys that are into astrology, but I see what you mean. It's not like typical. Are you dressing up for Halloween, Billy? Like, are you doing anything for Halloween? Thank you, Billy. I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie. Especially when I was sharing my thoughts on mixing. I was a little nervous to talk about it, but I'm glad I openly talked about it. I will be doing a dedicated video to it, but I felt like it tied into the eighth house and ancestral stuff because I do feel like right now we are doing a lot of ancestral healing, and I feel like there's going to be more to come in 2026. I am not. I'm actually watching scary movies though, and just eating like sweet treats, lots of food. I actually broke my sugar fast today because I was fasting from sugar for the past, like, I was fasting from sugar for like 3 days. So I'm excited to eat some sweets. I look forward to eating like a pumpkin pie. It's one of my favorite fall treats. It will be, honestly. I forgot what the movie is called, but I also found like uh what is it, like ghost story documentaries. You know those shows where there's like different ghost stories and everybody's like talking about their experience with paranormal activity, like that. So I'm gonna be watching some of that. I wanted to do a quick read on the month of November because tomorrow's November 1st. So I wanted to tap in like collectively so we could see what's going on in the month of November. So let's see. Let's see what the month of November has in store for us collectively. Okay, so we got the Two of Wands. So there are going to be some sudden decisions being made in the month of December. People are going to be springing into action on something. Yeah, I do feel like the month of November is a time to take risks, okay? Because there's a lot of divine support. And there's like a water grand trine that's happening right now and all through November. Um, so that is actually amazing because that represents divine support. So whatever it is that you want to take action on, you're ready to go for, just know you're divinely guided and supported. Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people are going to be stepping into new chapters, taking on new challenges. We got the strength card. We got the strength card. So people are going to be in their power in November. Yeah. Scorpio season is always that season where you power up. And that goes back to when you're working with your ancestors, you're more powerful. Okay. So this is the time to get into deep prayer. It's time to channel through the strength and the power of your ancestors to help you through these times. That's what I was saying earlier. Okay. But we're going to be in our power. Okay. November, we're going to be in our power. We got the 10 of Swords. Okay. So there could be some painful endings happening in November. I do feel like November is going to be peak transformational energy. Okay. We're reaching the climax of an ending, and it's going to be painful a little bit. It's going to hurt a little bit, but it's going to open up a new start for you. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of us having some fresh starts this November. There's going to be a lot of us. We're going to be reaching the climax point of a situation, of a cycle. So there's that. I feel like a lot of these cycles have to do with like emotional things, like betrayal. I feel like there's a lot of people in the collective that have been working through that emotionally. And there it goes. Like I said, really be mindful of who cycles back around in your life. It doesn't have to be all bad. There could be potentials for apologies being had too. Somebody from the past could come back around and give an apology with the Six of Cups. Because, like I said, there's been a lot of betrayal. Okay. There's been a lot of betrayal. So I feel like the Six of Cups indicates like there could be one or two things happening. Either there's going to be like a reconciliation and an apology and changed behavior, or this is a test. And this is where you have to be sharp spiritually during Scorpio season. So you're not getting got again. Okay. Because a lot of you in the collective have been getting got by people. You don't want that. So the spirit is testing your intuition, your ability to listen. Okay. And tap into your ancestors for guidance. If you're unsure about something, tap into your ancestors for guidance. Let's not speak that into existence, Billy. I feel like my intention worked. Let's not speak it into existence. Ooh. Okay, let's see what else comes through. Knight of Cups. So with the Knight of Cups, the month of November, people are getting their cups filled. People are starting to follow what makes them happy, doing what makes them happy. Okay, because we're done with the old cycles. We're done with it. We're done with the karmic relationships, the old cycles, we're done with the old situations. So with the Knight of Cups, the month of November is going to open up a lot of doors for us to receive our blessings. Okay? The month of November is the month of receiving. And I'll pull one more card for this month of November. The Fool card. And you know, in my Scorpio reading that I made, this came out for the collective too, for Scorpio season. So a lot of us are going to be having awakenings. A lot of us are going to experience a rebirth. There is a rebirth happening in November, and a new beginning is opening up. I've been saying this since eclipse season. A lot of people, especially like mutable signs, they're going to be opening up to a new chapter. I've been saying this since eclipse season. Okay. And something with the Fool card is that it's released all its baggage, all its emotional baggage, to where now it's able to openly receive the new beginning. Okay. And there is light ahead. You know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So if you're going through it now, or even in November, it feels like very chaotic because we're reaching that climax point, just know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. A new beginning is coming up on the horizon. You're entering a new era. Okay? And I also got this card too in the Scorpio season reading that I did on my channel. You're divinely guided and protected. You're divinely guided and protected as you move through this period of transition. The Six of Cups is a card of, or the Six of Swords is a card of transition, letting go. And even if it's hard, if, as you can see in the picture, the people, they look disappointed. You know what I'm saying? They look conflicted. They feel mentally conflicted. That's natural when you're going through a transition. Your emotions are going to be all over the place, but you have your spiritual guidance here. Tap in with your ancestors. Allow them to guide you forward, okay? Because they're guiding you to the new beginning. So Scorpio season has a lot to offer, you guys. A lot of ancestral knowledge, a lot of ancestral wealth. A lot of people are going to be activating their ancestral wealth. So I will say, if you're going to do the last three were Knight of Cups and the Fool card, and Six of Swords, or Six of Arrows in this deck. A lot of people are going to be activating their ancestral wealth. And I will say, if you're going to venerate your ancestors, work with seashells. Work with shells. That's an old ancestral practice, actually. A lot of ancestors, especially like in the African religion, seashells were a form of offering, like ancestor money. Shells were once considered a form of currency wealth, which is why when you see a lot of deities that are depicted, they're adorned in shells, especially like the orishas, or a lot of deities that are associated with abundance and wealth are like water deities. Mm-hmm. We are in a water month right now. We are in a water season right now. Yeah, get your shells. I have this one. I know it's not a cowrie, but just any shell. But yes, cowrie shells specifically are the ones that were considered a form of currency. Put that on your altar with your ancestors. Give them their offerings so they're happy. So they're having a happy Halloween, a happy spooky season too. Okay? Especially if you guys are going to be asking them for things. Make sure you're giving them the proper offerings. Because when you give them the proper offerings, this is when they're going to bless you 10 times over. But even then, too, when you're showing up, you're doing the spiritual work, your ancestors are going to bless you 10 times over because you're doing work that they didn't get to do, they couldn't do for whatever reason. And you are working on healing the bloodline. Okay? Your ancestors are going to bless you for that. When you're actively working to heal and free the bloodline, your ancestors are going to be happy. So I feel like this is a perfect time to ask your ancestor ask them a lot of questions on what to do next. You know what I'm saying? What are your next steps? What do you need me to work on? What do you need me to do? But this is also a time to equally ask them to do things for you too. It's an even exchange. Actually, the moon went away. I seen the moon earlier. And I'm like really looking forward to the Taurus full moon too. Hi, the cure to crime. How are you? Happy Halloween. You finished my Venus and Scorpio video? Thank you. How was it? Did you like it? Yeah, I have more Scorpio videos coming. More videos about Plutonian things. So also too, this is your opportunity, you guys. If you have any video requests, leave it in the chat so I know what to write down, so I know what to work on in the month of November. So let me know what you want to see from me now before I let you guys go. You said that's my favorite placement, and yes, I loved it. Thank you so much, The Curse to Crime. Thank you for watching. Are you new to my channel? Like, was that like the first time you came to my channel? Or you've been on my channel? Billy, you said, did you do Pisces Mars? No, I did not, but it's still in my things to do. Well, welcome to my channel. Expect more from me. What's your sign? Curse to crime or cure to crime? Here on my channel, I talk a lot about spiritual things, but I'm going to be talking more about Plutonian themes, more about psychology and things of that nature. But if there are any like astrology placements that you want me to talk about, I will be doing that still too. You said, is this the collective? What do you mean by that? And you said that your sign is Libra and you would like a Pisces Mars video because you have that placement. Okay. I will work on that. The one that I just did for the month of November, yes, it was. But I'm also doing live personal readings. Like it's just like a one card reading. I will say I am having a tarot flash sale. Yeah, the live stream is going to be up, so you'll be able to watch the playback. I will say I'm having a live tarot sale right now. It's going to end later tonight. But it's like $20 readings for 4 cards if you want like a deeper session and you get the reading back in the same day. So if you're interested in that, that's open for you. But on here, I'm just doing one card quick readings. So if you want something answered, just put trick or treat in the chat. And thank you for all the likes. How are you guys feeling about the full moon that's coming in Taurus? There's going to be a full moon in Taurus. I feel like that's going to be very powerful. You know, something that I noticed, like the Taurus full moons in Scorpio season hit way harder than like a Taurus full moon in like Taurus season. Okay, trick or treat. Okay, what's your question? Yeah, after this, I'm going to take like a nice little walk and look at the moon. Enjoy the Halloween vibes and the weather. Is it cold where you are, Billy? Because I know you said you're in Chicago. Does anybody experience like the cold front? I know like where I am, like it's a little cooler outside. So it's been nice to walk outside and do my exercise. Yeah, because I remember when I went to Chicago during this time, it was cold. And actually, around this time, it snowed. I was shocked. Man, I would definitely go back to Chicago for sure. I loved it. For fall, I loved it. Okay, cure to crime. You want to know how's my new connection looking at the moment? You're with the Sagittarius man. You know them Sagittariuses, they wild. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Ooh, my cards are all messed up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on just a second. Sorry, my cards got flipped. Okay. Let's see. Well, definitely the fire is there. He's bringing the fire. He's King of Wands. So definitely the passion is there. It's going good so far. I think you're enjoying yourself. You're enjoying the vibes. You know, I think it's going good so far. I do feel like he's someone that likes to take lead a lot. And I feel like that's something that you like, especially because you're a Libra. You know how Libras, they're kind of like on the fence, you know? So it's nice to have somebody that takes lead. But I do feel like the connection is going well so far. You know, I also do synastry readings too. So if you are looking for something long term and you kind of want to understand how to navigate your connection, I do synastry readings too. If you don't know, my website is cosmiccode.net and I do astrology readings, tarot readings. I have sessions on there. If you haven't checked out my website, definitely go check it out. Yes. Okay. So, last call, you guys. Do you guys have any questions before I get offline? so you guys could enjoy the rest of your Halloween. I'm going to try to go stargazing. I haven't stargazed in a while, but a star that has been popping up on my radar is Sirius. I always catch the star Sirius. And it's been one of my favorite stars because it's a powerful star. It's a star of divine knowledge. It's a star of divine power. And ever since my rebrand, I've been connecting with it a lot because I just always catch it, especially at night. The sky looks clear, so maybe I'll do some stargazing too. Last call, you guys. Do you guys have any questions about the live? Do you guys want any tarot questions? Any video requests? Any questions about readings? Let me know in the chat before I log off. Well, that is all I have for this live stream. Thank you, Billy. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you for always showing up and supporting me. Thank you to all of you that showed up today. I know it's Halloween, but I figured like, why not celebrate the spooky season online too? Right? But thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for always supporting me. Thank you, Billy, for keeping me safe with the troll because, oh my God, that was overwhelming me. That was overwhelming me for real. I was like, what is going on? I was like, what's going on? But yes, thank you guys for always supporting me. And be sure to check out my website, cosmiccode.net. Book a reading with me, catch the flash sale for the tarot. It ends tonight, $20 mini 4-card readings. And it gets sent to you in the same day. Okay? You said you're used to the trolls. Yeah, that was like the first time that has happened. So I was just like, what is going on? Probably because it's Halloween. You're most likely right, Billy. The Halloween energy, the spirits, the trickster spirits are out. So, but you see how powerful my intention was because I was like, send them away. And he never came back. My ancestors are protecting me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate all of you. And stay tuned for more videos. I actually just put up a video. It's about Scorpio energy and why your Scorpio energy is attacked, why you're spiritually attacked. So go check that out, show it some love. And again, check out my website, cosmiccode.net. I'm actually opening up for readings again in November, so stay tuned for that. You could reach out to me at my email, cosmiccode3@yahoo.com, for any questions or inquiries about readings, anything. And yeah, that's all I have. Happy Halloween, everyone. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Bye.